Modernizing IT service delivery. That's the name of the session. What does it mean? It's on top of mind for everyone here, but it probably means something different to each one of us. So how are we supposed to accelerate it? We'll show you with customer examples. My name is Max Aronin. I lead a group of solution architects with global perspective on IT modernization efforts. My colleague, Michael Del Castillo, leads some modernization efforts across our federal customers. And we want to take you on a journey to show you 3 things out of the session today. Number 1, for those of you who don't know ServiceNow, we're going to tell you a little bit about us and what we do. Number 2, we want to share with you the IT modernization journeys that our customers go through. And number 3, we're going to talk a lot about experience, and more importantly, the transformation of those experiences. So first, I want to ask you one thing. Think about one service delivery experience today in your organization that is not so good. Maybe it's those requesters, the customers that are asking for things, or maybe it's your employees that are providing those services. Keep that in mind throughout the session, and at the end, our hope is you walk away with one idea that you can start modernizing the experience tomorrow. If we can do the next slide. Oh, thanks. All right, so a little bit about ServiceNow. We started in 2004, and our founder was Fred Luddy, who had a vision. He saw a vision for a platform in the cloud that could help people in the enterprise to route work. And his vision was really foundational for the purpose for our company today. We make the world of work better for people. And it is especially humbling and truly exciting to be in position today to support the federal agencies, to make the world of work better for those who support most critical missions. We started in 2004 in ITSM, and now today we hold more than 47% market share. But over the last 10 years, we've really grown. And today we provide products for IT, employees, HR, customer service, and beyond for the rest of the enterprise. We're really honored to have been named last year, 2018, by Forbes as the #1 innovation company in the world. And we owe that really to our customers and our partners. Those people find incredible ways to use our platform in the most creative ways to solve really hard business and mission challenges every day. So for those of you in the audience that are customers and partners today, thank you. Speaking of the platform, Michael, why don't you take us through and talk about what our platform does?
Sure. So before I talk about what the platform does, let's talk about what the platform is. So the Now Platform is a construct or a combination of features and services, things like notifications, a reporting engine, a workflow engine, interfaces that allow you to integrate with other systems. All of this built into a platform, and then applications built on top of that. So when we talk about the platform, we talk about these different workflow clouds, IT workflows, workflows for IT, we'll talk more about that later, employee workflows, workflows for HR, and then customer service workflows. Workflows that your organization can leverage to deal with external customers. So when we talk more specifically about IT workflows, these are really the standard ITIL processes, but really defined more in a workflow sense. So if you think about IT service management, this encapsulates the different capabilities needed to support an organization from a request fulfillment standpoint, or the ability to capture and intake issues from an incident standpoint and resolve those issues as quickly as possible. Even the ability to provide a CMDB for a single source of truth for all of the assets that exist within the environment, and then even implement processes such as change management or problem management so that you can eventually merge into opportunities or disciplines such as DevOps, AI Ops, and enterprise architecture. Moving on to operations management, this is really the discipline of bringing together the operations team and the service management team. Bringing together those apps that are managed by operations, the infrastructure managed by operations, and tying them into processes that your service desk leverages through tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 support. And then also, again, leveraging that platform, the power of that CMDB. One of the things that I'll mention today is throughout all of these different workflows, they can be implemented individually or all together. And the greatest thing about realizing value on the platform is implementing them all together. So as we move forward into IT business management, this is the process of taking and understanding the demands that are coming into the environment, looking at those demands based on stakeholder perspectives for the various programs and portfolios, scoring them, and then progressing those demands into actually work to be done projects. From there, then aligning them to strategic initiatives throughout the business. So it's really taking a grasp and providing visibility of everything from IT to the business and providing that complete view, in addition to the financials all the way across. Moving into IT asset management, this is exactly as it sounds. The management of hardware and software and the ability to leverage ServiceNow's content library to perform normalization against the software assets that exist within your environment, match those up with entitlements to identify where your organization is overspending on things that you are using, underspending, meaning you're going to end up paying somebody else when an audit time comes, and also being able to perform optimization workflows so that you can reclaim software that's not being used that you're paying for. And then moving into security operations and GRC, or governance, risk, and compliance, these two workflows are really used together. So if you think about the security teams, they're looking at constant threats that are coming and they're managing vulnerabilities throughout the organization. GRC is doing the same thing. They're managing the risk that you as an organization is accepting to run. So when you take those two disciplines, pair them together, when you do have an incident, you now have a place that you can manage your security incidents all the way through the life cycle of those items. And then finally, build your own apps. Truthfully, one of my favorite categories because you can do anything, right? You can leverage our platform the same way we leverage it to build applications. You can leverage it to build applications within your organization. So you can build out your own service management practices or processes leveraging low code and pro code capabilities, just like you would any other platform.
That's awesome overview. So to summarize, we have processes that are out of the box available to jumpstart modernization, not across just IT service management, but the entire IT organization and beyond. That's really powerful. So how are people actually using the platform? And what does the modernization journey look like? Here you see a pretty standard journey map that we see by the customers. There's 3 phases we see them go through. The first, they care about process standardization and driving costs down. Then they start thinking about how do I provide these services and this service orientation to deliver speed in the cloud. And the third area we're seeing is now thinking about those experiences to transform them because those provide the competitive or mission advantage. Now, we used to see customers that really would focus on the foundation first and only then start getting to that transformative experience. And today, we're seeing more and more customers do is actually realize they need to do those things concurrently. Because the business leaders and the mission leaders realize that customer and employee experience is their number 1 priority and it provides a competitive and mission advantage. So let's look at each one of those and dig in a little bit deeper. When we see customers look at the foundation, we see acceleration of the foundation through what we call our better together scenarios. So when Michael talked about IT service management, IT operations management, and business management, those are 3 core components of what we see customers use as foundation. They use ITSM, for example, to set up their IT processes, and then CMDB, but then they want to automate the population of the CMDB with that data. And more importantly, keep that data up to date at all times. And that's what ITOM does. It provides that with the discovery, the automatic population that was never available. And Michael is going to talk a little bit about some of those initiatives that our federal customers are doing. Another great example is the incident management process service delivery folks deal with every day. And with event management now, with IT operations management, not only are we managing those incidents, but more importantly, customers look to deflect them so they never become incidents in the first place. The final area we're seeing a trend around is really the IT business management, where typically the planning organizations tend to stay a little bit away from service delivery we're seeing that changing. We're seeing those organizations get engaged earlier on because customers are able to start their transformation initiatives and be successful. They're getting floods of demands for services. And what do? How do you prioritize? And then how do you decide on investments? That's what the planning team helps them do earlier on. Now let's talk about the experience piece. We're probably all familiar with the pixels on a screen definition of experience, UI, UX. And we're seeing customers realize that it's really more than that. Well, we're seeing customers realize that experience is shaped by your consumer expectations, that each one of us has the technology at home and comes to work asking, well, why can't I have this here? We boil it down to three things. Number one is the part that we're all used to. Experience needs to be intuitive. It needs to be simple. But it needs to be more than that. Number two, it has to be intelligent. And by that, we mean that there's data about users that people expect you to use to make contextual recommendations, to not make them ask silly questions. Now think about that service request form and maybe how many fields it has on it. Can you eliminate some of those with the data you already know about that user? And number three, it's the velocity. So we all are now conditioned to same-day shipping. And let's face it, when we get to work, the question is, well, why can't I get this stuff right now? So those three things we're seeing are really foundational to shaping those experience transformation conversations with our customers. One example is a customer that a global vision company, and they run multiple lines of businesses. And their IT is actually a shared services function, and their IT leader said, I couldn't do this without ServiceNow because I need to understand complete visibility of these services, because now I need to understand what they cost me to run, because then I need to be able to charge back my lines of businesses for the services I provide them. Another customer who was a cybersecurity organization leader said, we have to be brilliant at the basics, because if my CEO can't order that mobile device in 2 clicks, how can he trust me to transform the business? So Michael, are we seeing some of the same trends in federal?
Yeah, we absolutely are. I mean, one of the things that I'm seeing in federal is that there's a demand to release or adopt platforms. Definitely something we're seeing. You know, let me use NASA as an example. In 2015, they were doing an evaluation after they had consolidated the different centers. There was 10 different centers across 40,000 employees, and they wanted to find a platform that allowed them to provide services for both their employees and their partners to request a single service and process that through and provide visibility across the way. This was a huge thing for them, very transformational. It was not something that they had available today. Their existing or their environment at the time was bolted together by a lot of heavy integrations, manual processes, and believe it or not, multiple contracts. So they had some teams with a change management solution, other teams that were doing asset, and nothing spoke to each other, right? So they implemented ServiceNow. They chose ServiceNow. They were easily able to structure, define, and implement the various services across 50 disciplines. So they had 50 different services implemented for IT, HR, finance. They even developed a couple custom applications for grants management and procurement and rolled those out as part of this implementation. So it's absolutely something we're seeing, and it's not just something we're seeing across large organizations. Some of the smaller organizations with 3,000 people in them are still implementing platforms and trying to realize the same value as these large customers.
That's great. So federal experience, very important. And did you know that it is the #1 priority on the cross-cutting priority areas for the President's management agenda, customer experience? And not only that, but the federal CIO's digital services playbook, their first 3 plays deal with experience transformation. So what does an experience look like? And before we go into that, let me highlight for you what a terrible experience looks like. And this is an example from a healthcare customer that I recently spoke to. They're a large healthcare organization on the East Coast, and they have doctors across hospitals working with patients using EHR, electronic health records system. When the patients come in the office, they sit and they talk to the doctor, and the doctor captures that information on a computer in the EHR. To do that, they have to use Citrix. And for those of you that know Citrix, know the problems that always come up, right? They hang. The sessions hang. So imagine this. Doctor sitting with the patient, taking down information, it hangs. What do? They call a help desk. Average 15 minutes to resolve that, a Citrix session and reset. And guess how many times that happens per day? 70 times per day, their service desk gets the same ask from across their hospitals, and that's about 9,000 hours of productivity loss. And just think about the customer and employee experience. That's terrible, right? So how do they transform it? Well, it just so happened that it was a great use case for virtual agent technology. So virtual agent is a technology that we actually came out in our London release about 6 months ago. What's unique about it is that it provides the ability for anybody to create these conversations that automate the interactions. That's very unique because a lot of times you see virtual agents talk about natural language processing and be able to have these conversations, which take a long time to set up. So what we've done is we tried to provide the tools for the service delivery folks to really create those conversations based on the things they already know. They already know those conversations that get asked over and over again. And so this was a great example. This healthcare customer created a conversation around the Citrix reset. When a doctor came and asked for a Citrix reset session, behind the scenes, we use an integration hub that connects into Citrix, runs a PowerShell script based on the user ID, identifies that sessions, terminates it, and bam, within seconds, it's done. That's transformational for that particular doctor and the patient, and they love us for that. Are you seeing that in federal as well?
We absolutely are. And you used a number of 9,000 hours of lost productivity. So if you think about an organization the size of NASA, 40,000 people, if there was 15 minutes lost productivity there, it'd be well over that. You know, organizations like the VA that have even more people than that, or even think of like the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services. As they're offering services to citizens of the US, think of how many citizens would be losing their own productivity and having terrible experiences when they have to call in to get information. So what we are seeing is a number of organizations like them starting to look at virtual agents and figuring out ways in which they can improve their own experiences. Some of the first things that they're doing is they're looking at the data by looking at their existing incidents, their existing requests, the different types of services they offer, and matching those up to the out-of-the-box conversations such as password reset, order items, request services, search a knowledge base, and they're comparing those to their existing processes so that they can make sure that they drive a seamless experience from this virtual agent or chatbot, the same way citizens of the US and internal employees of an organization are used to interacting with a live agent. So it's definitely something we're seeing. I actually believe that we're going to be rolling out virtual agent a lot more at organizations as, truthfully, the government becomes more comfortable with this type of concept.
That's great. All right, so we talked about the requester experience. Now let's switch into kind of what I call the back end of the house and talk about the operator experience. And those of you that sat in those shoes know it's a brutal world out there, right? You got incidents and events coming at you from all sides. Every day you're trying to put out fires, right? And you've got 20 different monitors and you're trying to figure out what's happening, right? We have one example that was happening at a large media company. They were getting 120,000 events per week, right? And it's just daunting. So you're talking 1,000 events that turn into incidents per hour. So this is where you get into AI ops conversation that I think all of you are familiar with. AI ops is really around using the machine learning, artificial intelligence together with those event management capabilities to really deflect some of that noise. And we're seeing customers, some of the large event management customers from our base, reduce that by an order of 99.8%. So that particular media customer went from 120,000 events that were incidents per week down to 1,000. Now that's manageable, right? You're talking 5, 6, maybe per hour incidents. It's still high, but it's doable, right? So, but more than that, so once you have those 5 or 6 come in, what do you do with it, right? And typically, operators weren't really close to the service delivery folks, right? Maybe you have to pick up the phone, you have to walk over. And so what we've done here, we've created a single integrated workspace that really brings those two worlds together. We want those operators and service agents to really see that unifying picture around this workspace and be able to resolve those issues before they actually become incidents. Michael, any insights there for?
Yeah, same thing. I mean, one of the experiences I've been hearing about forever, as over the years I've been working in government, is this vision of a single pane of glass, right? This operator workspace that allows somebody visibility across their environment to understand what's happening in real time and be able to prioritize the work that gets handed out or the work that gets worked on based on the needs of the business. You know, in one of my experiences working with a financial regulatory organization here in the federal space, every operator had 2 to 3 monitors and had multiple workstations and truthfully had a very, very nice chair because they were swiveling back and forth all day, right? So that experience is possibly one of the worst I've seen. And it doesn't have to be that way, but it is. And it's because we didn't have things that allowed you to bring in all this data. So one of the other things that I'm seeing quite a bit in government is the reemergence of the CMDB and actual efforts being put into developing out a CMDB, but also developing out a service-aware CMDB. So you have fully mapped services, and then even taking the monitoring solutions that exist already in the environment and overlaying those to the configuration items that exist throughout those services. So you're really able to provide a complete view into what's happening, and for an operator, giving them something to actually for the first time say, you know what, I have an alert here and I have an alert here. Which one of those alerts create or supports my most critical business function, my most critical business service with an organization? So we are seeing that. I would say over the past year, I've done about 8 CMDB workshops for people that are just re-kicking off their CMDB efforts.
Wow, that's huge. All right, so the third experience we want to talk to you about is DevOps. Of course, I think the previous 2 sessions had agility and DevOps in the conversation, so we couldn't leave here without talking about DevOps. So what does DevOps mean in the context of service delivery? And what we're seeing with customers is really truly starting to bring together developers and operators. And really it's through that middle piece, which is that change management process. And what we're seeing is organizations are struggling with maintaining the velocity while still maintaining that visibility and auditability to make sure they're compliant, especially in the regulated industries like financial services, healthcare, and anybody that has to deal with SOX compliance. And so we have kind of 2 ends of the spectrum that's happening. On one end, you have organizations that make their developers go through a change management process, and it's daunting for them. The experience is terrible. They have to fill out manual forms and then wait a long time. Or on the other end of the spectrum, we had organizations that said, forget it. I'm going to bypass the change management process, and I'm just going to do continuous delivery right into production. And you know what happens then? We get outages. And those same organizations then come back and say, we can't afford that. It's costing me about $3,000 per minute of an outage. I need a fix. So what we're seeing is those 2 teams, or 3 teams coming together and really automating that change management process so it's a win-win across the board. The way they're doing it is with 3 steps. Number 1 is ServiceNow connects into the CI/CD pipeline that developers are used to working in. You all know developers love their tools, and nobody's going to take their tools away, all right? But by connecting to those tools, all of a sudden you have access to data that is a foundation for that automation. So you can do step number 2, which is negotiate that policy that drives the automation. So for example, maybe it's what is your code coverage? If it's more than 80%, it's good enough for an automated change. If all your builds pass without errors, if your security test went through, then you shouldn't need to go through the cab. And so we're seeing tremendous impact on productivity around that. One financial customer went from 23 days on average to go through the change management process. Now again, they're a financially regulated customer. Then when they go into production, they have to check all the boxes. Actually, security was in the mix, and they were taking a long time to do those manual processes. But 99% of the steps within the process was manual. So they went through that. They connected to the tool chain. They went through, they picked the negotiated policy, and they were able to go from 23 days to 2 days. Now, 2 days is still not fully automated, but come on, it's better than 23. And part of the reason that the 2 days still had to be there were still some manual security checks that they're actually working on to automate with the security, with the GRC and the SecOps suite. What are you seeing in federal in terms of DevOps, Michael?
So DevOps and Agile are two buzzwords that I've been hearing over the past 5 years, right? And realistically, this is the year that I've actually had many customers say, this is the year. I've already worked with 4 different customers this year that want to integrate Jira, Team Foundation Server, Jenkins, Chef, Puppet, all their config automation tools, and put them into a workflow that allows ServiceNow to manage that entire process. I think you said something critical, is that developers love their tools. I've not worked with a single organization that says we're going to take any of those tools away. We are absolutely going to figure out ways to integrate a tool chain, if you will, that allows the developers to do what they're doing, but still provides management of visibility across all of that effort. Another thing that I'm seeing a big a groundswell on is the Scaled Agile framework. Yeah. So this is the first year that I've seen a lot of organizations actually getting certified in SAFe and actually trying to roll SAFe out to support development streams across multiple teams, multiple sprints, and really leverage the capabilities of big room planning. And that's actually something we have support now as part of our London release. We came out with Scaled Agile framework for Essential SAFe, and then now within Madrid, we actually support for Portfolio SAFe. So definitely something I've seen, definitely something that I think we're going to continue to see as well.
That's great. All right, so we took you through 3 experiences, and now let's talk a little bit about the people aspect of things. I mean, we talked about experience of people, but more of the organizational change, and how do you drive the transformation from a leadership perspective? And we're seeing a couple of interesting trends that are happening. Number 1 is the executive sponsor role. That is a pretty traditional role that in all organization. They're taking a spin to really focus on that experience initiative. And one example is a large global professional service organization that really took it to heart. Their CIO stood up experience initiative as their number 1 priority for the entire organization, right? And it paid off dividends. When he did that, it not only helped him to transform IT, but then he was partnering across other parts of the business, HR, procurement, and so on and so forth. Now, when that happens and you're showing some great progress and successes, people notice and they want your services. And so what happens is the second role, which we typically know as a platform owner, that's somebody that really kind of owns the ServiceNow platform for the enterprise and makes sure it's working and everybody kind of works together well. Well, we're seeing that role get inundated with requests. And what happens is they get frustrated and they say, okay, take a back seat. We got a line of people that want our services, right? And so we're seeing a transition of that role from a platform owner to a platform leader. And really the difference here is that individual is now starting to embrace the fact that people want their help. And asking them to wait 6 months to get there is not an option. So what they're having to figure out is how to engage those teams, how to enable them, how to empower them to actually deliver those services themselves while still stay integrated with the rest of the platform team. And number 3, the role that we're seeing that's really important is a role of an experienced architect. Now, this is somebody that's not a UI UX expert. This is somebody that looks from end to end of a service and figures out what that workflow looks like. This is somebody who is a change agent, a facilitator that can bring people together from across organizations, and really an innovator that can rethink kind of the process-oriented thinking into an experience-oriented thinking, which means a lot of times you have to remove steps from the process. We see that's a tremendous role that's really impactful to help use ServiceNow, not as the only platform within the enterprise, but as one of many, but provides that connective tissue to connect across all IT technologies to provide that seamless experience for customers and employees. And you're seeing something around the centers of excellence, right?
Right, and these roles are actually absolutely critical roles. What we're seeing is the first time you roll ServiceNow out, organizations are so excited. There's so much you can do, and truthfully, because it's so easy, everybody wants a piece of this, and they want something right now. Well, without a center of excellence, without an organization that actually can set proper expectations within the organization, we see the demand growing so much, but people becoming frustrated. So you do need to put proper stewardship roles in place, a service management office, a center of excellence, or an intake body that can actually set realistic expectations, drive people towards this process so that there's everyone's coming together instead of working against each other. One of the other things that we're seeing is contract shifting. Government is writing contracts to say, here's a platform owner, but I still want multiple developers. So we're seeing a platform team that runs the actual instance of ServiceNow, but then different developers working within that instance and everybody working together. So there's a big push for not just one contractor, but multiple contractors working together to deliver these enterprise solutions on a single platform.
That's great insights. All right, we covered a lot of ground here. Let's recap. So we took you through a platform overview and how it can really help to bring together your entire IT organization. Number 2 is we took you through the IT modernization journey and what that looks like, and the key that we're seeing that customers are really looking to do this concurrently. And number 3 is we took you through some experiences and examples around virtual agent, AIOps, and DevOps. So now let's think back about that experience maybe you thought of in the beginning of the session that wasn't so good. And we hope that through these examples, it gave you at least one idea of how starting tomorrow you can go back to your organizations and start transforming those experiences one at a time. Thank you very much.